She arrived in rags on Christmas Eve, the single father said. You're the miracle I waited for. The storm rolled in early that Christmas Eve, the kind that painted the sky an iron gray and made the whole world feel colder than it should on a night meant for warmth. Daniel Reeves stood on the porch of his small, aging farmhouse, tightening his coat as the wind sliced across the fields. He had promised his 7-year-old son, Caleb, that they would still make Christmas happen, despite the layoffs, despite the bills piling up like unwanted snowdrifts, despite the ache of trying to do it all alone. But promises felt heavier than usual that night. Inside, Caleb was drawing with the stub of a crayon, humming carols off-key, blissfully unaware that the only present under the tree was one Daniel had wrapped with hope rather than tape. A used book from a thrift store. The best he could do. Daniel closed his eyes, letting the cold bite his cheeks. Just get through the night, he told himself. Get through Christmas. Next year will be better. He whispered those same words every December, but this year they felt fragile, almost foolish. Then he heard it. A soft, hesitant knock at the front door. He froze. No one visited the farm unannounced. And certainly not in the middle of a storm. When he opened the door, he saw a girl, no more than 16, standing in soaked rags, shivering so hard her teeth clicked. Her hair hung in heavy strands, and her eyes were wide with a mix of fear and exhaustion. She clutched a torn backpack to her chest as though it was the last thing she owned. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice trembling. I didn't know where else to go. For a moment, Daniel couldn't speak. The world already felt too heavy, he wasn't sure he had room to carry someone else's burdens. Yet when he looked at her, really looked, he saw the desperation. The loneliness. And something else too, something he remembered feeling himself the night his wife passed away. A plea for kindness. Come in, he said immediately, stepping aside. The girl hesitated, then crossed the threshold as if stepping into another world. Warmth, however modest, wrapped around her. She blinked at the small humble living room, the dented space heater, the mismatched blankets, the tiny artificial tree with paper ornaments Caleb had made at school. Caleb peeked in from the kitchen and gasped. Dad, who is she? Daniel glanced at the girl, letting her decide how much to share. My name is Lily, she said quietly. I've been walking for hours. I left home. Things weren't safe anymore. The silence that followed was thick but understanding. Daniel didn't press her. Some stories were too raw to unpack on a freezing doorstep. He found her dry clothes from a donation box he'd been meaning to drop off. They were big on her, but she smiled anyway as she wrapped herself in a blanket and sat by the heater. Caleb brought her a mug of cocoa. Made from the last packet they had, and Lily's hands shook as she accepted it. No one's ever been this kind to me, she murmured. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. Maybe it was recognition. Maybe it was the weight of knowing how rare kindness could be when someone needed it most. Throughout the evening, Lily slowly opened up. Not with details, not yet, but with pieces. A broken home. Nights spent alone. Words said in anger. Doors slammed too often. A final moment when leaving seemed safer than staying. Daniel listened. And he kept listening, because sometimes that was the only thing a person needed to feel human again. As the night deepened, the storm worsened, rattling the windows and burying the farm under snow. There would be no going back out in that. Lily seemed relieved and terrified all at once, torn between gratitude and the fear of being a burden. You're safe here, Daniel reassured her. For as long as you need. She wiped a tear with the sleeve of the borrowed sweater. Why? You don't even know me. Daniel looked at her carefully. Once upon a time, someone helped me on a night when I thought the world had nothing left to offer. My wife used to say, compassion doesn't need a reason. Lily's breath caught. I don't think anyone's ever said something like that to me. Caleb tugged at his dad's hand. She can stay for Christmas, right? Daniel smiled softly. Yes. She can stay. But something unexpected happened just past midnight. While Caleb slept and Lily folded the blankets she'd used, she asked shyly, Do you have any wrapping paper? Daniel blinked at the odd request. A little. Why? She opened her damaged backpack. Inside were small items, a charm bracelet missing half the charms, a cracked snow globe, a scarf with holes. Cast-offs, maybe. Treasures to someone else. I don't have a family to give gifts to, she said softly. But I'd like to give something to you and Caleb. Even if it isn't much. Her voice wavered. I don't want to feel like I just take. I want to give too. And something changed in that moment. Because Daniel realized Lily wasn't just someone he was helping, she was someone who, despite everything, still wanted to give kindness back. Still wanted to make someone's Christmas brighter, even when hers had always been dim. Together they wrapped the modest gifts in leftover paper scraps, laughing quietly each time the tape stuck to their fingers. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Human. Beautiful. Just before dawn, when the storm finally eased, Daniel looked at Lily across the living room, warm, safe, trying bravely to belong in a world that hadn't made space for her. Lily, he said gently, I don't know what brought you here tonight. But I want you to know something. She looked up, eyes wide. You're the miracle I waited for. A breath escaped her, shaky and full of emotion. A miracle? Yes. He nodded. You reminded me that even when life feels empty, kindness brings it back to life. And with that, Christmas morning arrived, not with expensive gifts or grand miracles, but with 3 people who needed one another more than they knew. They shared breakfast made from whatever was in the pantry. They opened gifts wrapped in mismatched paper. They laughed. They healed. And for the first time in years, the old farmhouse felt full again, full of warmth, full of hope, full of family created not by blood, but by compassion freely given. Because sometimes the miracle you're waiting for arrives in rags on a stormy night. And sometimes, the miracle is simply the chance to choose kindness when it matters most.